All right, let's go this week. We're chatting to Justin Tatum at the Hawks, and the Cavs are in town, keeping a close eye on Luke Travers.
And we're talking NBA with Derek Rucker and some advice for the Kings. Play Jonah Bolden.
This is the Basketball Show with Shane the Hammer Heel. What they gonna say next?
What's happening, everyone? Joe and Hammer with you as we build up to week 11 in the NBL and unpack the week that was. Hammer, what are you looking forward to this week?
Oh, so much basketball. I love this time of the year, but I love Chrissy too, Joe. Love having the family here. Shiloh's home for a couple of weeks before she takes off again, so it's all good. Lots of hoops.
They call it the festive season for a reason. This is the Basketball Show, thanks to Code Sports, Boost Mobile and the Throwback Store. Let's go. Let's get into our starting five now. Plenty happening at Southeast Melbourne. Most recently, they have announced their new import, Abdel Nader. 202 NBA games. What have you heard about him? How do you think this fit is going to go?
Well, it looks like he's going to be quality. I think he's going to be a good fit. Positionally, I think he's a good fit. I guess the only question mark is he hasn't played professionally for a bit of time. So that's probably the only question mark. It might take him a little bit longer to get going, but Southeast Melbourne are rolling. They were great against the Kings last week, so they don't need him to come in and dominate from the start because they've already got so much talent.
Speaking of the Kings, what is going on? They looked really disinterested. They weren't engaged the other day. I can't even remember the amount of times that JA was sort of yelled at for not running into the group huddle. Something's not clicking.
Well, and his stances. I mean, his stances off the ball are bad. Even on the ball, the body language isn't great. They're certainly not living up to the talent they've got, because you rate them talent-wise, they're one of the best teams in the league, maybe the best team in the league. So they're certainly not living up to that. So it's hard to put a finger on what's going on behind closed doors, but you certainly got to ask the question about what's going on because the results aren't right. Bolden, I think Bolden needs to play more. I think he's been outstanding, particularly on the offensive end. You know, I think he had like 15 and 15 in 21 minutes or something. So I'd like to see him play a little bit more.
Well, Andrew Bogut said in his podcast this week that if it were up to him, he'd probably look to change some of the rotations, maybe inject some new energy into the starting five as well. They've got Tassie this weekend. He said it's a make or break game for their season. Big
test. That's the team you don't want to be coming up against if it's a make or break game, because they are so consistent, Tassie, so well drilled and disciplined. Probably the complete opposite of what the Kings are. Kings got more talent, but don't have the same sort of discipline.
The Adelaide 36ers had their first game under Scott Ninnis this weekend. Things are just going from bad to worse, it feels like.
Well, I was scratching my head. I'm like, if you're going to make changes, surely you're not going to make changes to McCarron, Kadee and Detch. They were horrendous. I was sitting on the couch with a frothy and I said to my kids, I could get 20 in this game. I could waddle up and down and still get 20 against the defence of the Adelaide 36ers. They were terrible. They are the wooden spoon team without doubt. They're like, I just can't see how they could get above anybody with the way the Hawks are playing, and I just can't believe the changes that were made.
Up against the Cairns Taipans, who are the second best defensive team in the competition, it felt like neither team were playing defence, to be honest.
It was jungle ball. They were just running up and down. No one had any sort of care factor at all, strategy. No one wanted to contain the ball. The amount of times that they just didn't get in a stance and people just drove straight past them, straight line drives to be able to get baskets, isn't at the level that we expect of the NBL.
Where do you think Cairns are at the moment?
It's a little bit hard to judge Cairns because they went away for the NBA, then they had a few players out. They haven't really played with a full roster. I think they're getting better. They're going to continue to improve. We're going to know more over the next 6 games or so to see whether they're a legitimate chance to be able to win a championship or challenge for it, or whether they're going to just drop off.
The Perth Wildcats, they had a big loss against the Hawks, one that they will definitely want to put behind them, learn from, but put behind them. John Riley, at the end of the game, had an interesting press conference. Let's have a look at what he had to say.
I'll ask a question. Missing Ty Webster, was that important to you guys? Yes, I think having Ty Webster absent tonight was very key for our team. Thank you.
Mic drop at the end of the press conference.
What did they win? 5 or 6 in a row?
6.
Hey, he's very grumpy. John Rillie. Everyone has players missing. Everyone has players missing. The United beat South East Melbourne and they had 3 starters out and they go and get the job done. You can't make excuses from having one player out. And we've been really kind to Perth over the last 6 games and the job that John Rillie's done to get them on track. But you can't do that.
Do you think he's making excuses? I feel like he's just frustrated. I had no problem with that.
Really? Well, why do you need to bring that up? Everyone knew that Ty Webster wasn't playing, and he is an important part. But you don't hear Ford saying that with all of the injuries that they had with Cairns. They've had probably more injuries than anybody.
No, I understand that. I just don't see that it was a big deal.
Well, if he was asked the question, then he'd say, fair enough that you answer it. But he wasn't asked the question. He didn't need to add that. He was just making excuses.
Yeah, okay. I actually laughed out loud when I heard it. The Opals team for their upcoming Olympic qualifiers has been announced, 20-player squad.
Yep.
A few injury concerns. Alice Kunik breaking her wrist the other day. She's just had surgery, so we wish her the best in her recovery. But that's a big blow. She would have been sort of penciled in to probably be there or thereabouts.
Yeah, probably. Well, Beck Allen now asking for a release from Europe, coming home, so she'll probably be available. So that fills a big hole. And it's just who's available in Europe because Ezzy is over there, whether they take that time off to be able to go away with the Opals. But it's an important series. This is for the Olympic qualifications, so they'll want to be playing the best. And I don't think there's much lead time or any camps prior to playing these games.
So they take on Brazil, Germany and Serbia in February. Any surprises in that squad?
No, I don't think so. I like the fact that Borlase was named in this squad. She's a terrific young player. And I saw they did the mock draft the other day, and I think she was like at number 13 behind Pooch and Georgia Moore. I think that Borlase is the best of the lot of them. I think she is WNBA ready. I think she'll end up playing, and I think she's an Opal of the future, so wouldn't be surprised to see them blood her at some stage. No
Lauren Nicholson in the squad. Is that a surprise?
I think Lauren's been playing great basketball, and she probably on form deserves it. She's a great player and a great teammate. But I guess she's getting to that age. Do you have some of these younger players come in because she's never been picked for an Olympics or World Cup before? Not saying that she shouldn't, but that's probably the logic behind it, I would think.
Very quickly, before we move on, the Cairns Taipans. Bull Quoll, talk to me.
We have pumped him up for so long. One of my favourite players, but he's doing my head in right now with the fouls that he is making. And Joey Wright came out, Derek Rucker and I have been talking about him being NBA quality. Well, he is physically and he is defensively, but he's not playing with the smarts. He needs to smarten up because his dumb fouls are killing his team. And when you're one of the key players, you can't get little tiggy-touch fouls and allow the referee to blow you out. And McCall, he's been outstanding as well, but stop the flopper, mate, because we're going to have to put together a package on you. Stop the flop is back.
Hashtag stop the flop.
Stop the flop.
It comes up every season, doesn't it?
Stop the flop. And we're going to have to call him out because he's too good to be flipping and flopping everywhere at every game that I'm watching him play. He's too good. Don't do it, mate. Don't do it.
5.
Hoops highlights time, thanks to Boost Mobile.
Opposite wing on that one.
How good was that? He just made that look easy.
4.
You were living under a rock if you didn't see this one this week.
Got a 2-on-1 with Monk. Drops it up Malik.
And this is just what he does. Same thing.
Raising his hand for it, but guess who else is getting in on the action?
Beautiful stuff.
Malik Monk.
He put some feeling in that one.
Throwing it down.
3. 30-17.
And then nails it.
All the way in and all the way up.
That could be number 1.
I think that is number 1.
Man up there with 2 hands. 2.
Hammer, check this out.
Gets beneath the free throw line. The floater is short.
And imagine having that sort of athleticism.
Down with tremendous force for the final score.
One of the greatest to ever do it. And let's get to number 1.
I still don't know how he did that.
1. Third quarter. Victor rolling to the bucket.
I love this. He gets some serious air there.
That is a great finish. Made that look easy.
Somebody needs a body bag.
Those are your Hoops highlights, thanks to Boost Mobile. Well, D-Ruck is joining us now from Brisbane for Points Made. Guys, I want to ask about the NBA in-season tournament. The Lakers were the eventual winners. LeBron James with the tournament MVP. The banners going up at Staples or Crypto. D, what did you make of the tournament as a whole?
I really enjoyed it. I especially liked the final weekend. I like the fact that LeBron came out and played really hard like it mattered to him, Hammer. And when you get buy-in from one of the greats of all time, it doesn't hurt your tournament at all. I think it adds to the potential down the road for this developing into something bigger. And it was great to see Anthony Davis wake up and deliver in a big moment. Now, expect him to go back into a slumber for about 2 weeks, because we know when he wins championships or does anything great, it's never long-lasting.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it was fantastic. For those that didn't like the in-season tournament, how's this stat? It was the most viewed game, apart from Christmas Day, in the last 6 years for a regular season game. So it was hugely successful for something that's happening at this time of the year. There's no doubt that it helped that LeBron was part of this and that he really went after it. He promised his rookies he was going to win another $500K each for those guys. But then when you start talking about putting up the banner, this is where I draw the line. The banner doesn't go in the rafters. It's a tournament. It's not real. It's fluff. That's where we draw the banner.
That's so true. And I remember Shaq used to make fun of Sacramento for winning the division banners at their place in Sacramento. So it's along those lines. However, I will say this, Hammer, and Joe and I had this discussion last weekend. Say this event goes on to be something brilliant 20, 25 years down the line, and they have that banner hanging up there, and LeBron was part of the first ever one. It could take on a significance and importance historically that we probably don't see right now.
Well, I say just put it in the cupboard until it actually takes on that significance, dust it off, and then put it up at that time, because right now it's fluffy. It's fluff.
Well, and probably you have a bit more insight to banners than most of us.
I do. And what comes up sometimes comes down.
Hammer, you mentioned the $500K for each player from the winning team as the incentive for the tournament. Tyrese Halliburton had an interesting take. He said that what if there's a playoff spot up for grabs for the winners of the in-season tournament? I absolutely love this. I don't know logistically how it works, but Dee, what do you think?
Well, Joe, I don't know why you love it so much, because if it happened this season, guess who's probably getting knocked out? Miami.
I know. But hey, that's all right. This is an Adam Silver sort of problem to try and organise. Mate, but do you like it?
No, mate, there's no way.
I love it.
The tournament is the tournament. You get your $500K each, you get your little banner, but you don't get a playoff spot for it. This is a tournament. It has nothing to do with the regular season on the bigger scale. You don't get a playoff berth for winning a tournament.
Joe, I'm with you. I like it, Joe, and I think Hammer's just kind of stuck in tradition, which I understand as well. But I think it's a great idea, and it really increases the importance of those play-in games, those in-season games, Hammer.
You play 82 games to make the playoffs. You're saying a 6-game tournament should determine whether you make the playoffs or not. That's a joke. You guys are kidding yourselves.
Well, there are reports that the NBA are looking into this, so we'll see what happens. Maybe it's something they trial next year.
Trial. That is disgraceful. 6 games and you're going to make the playoffs.
I love it so much.
That's like playing 2-game tournament in the NBL and you make the playoffs. That's the equivalent. That's what you guys want. You can't give them the playoff berth. You earn that 82 games. Longevity.
I know we're talking about incentives. This is going to wake people up.
Jeez.
A little closer to home, we're talking the NBL round 11 tipping off with the throwdown in Melbourne. Both teams coming off big wins. Dee, what's this matchup? Who wins?
This is probably the most anticipated throwdown in some time, because we saw, Joe, on Sunday, Southeast Melbourne absolutely dismantle the Sydney Kings. And in the game prior, Brisbane got a real taste in what it's like after a Dean Vickerman embarrassment. So these teams are coming in ready. They have guys who are playing sensationally. And Hammer, I especially love it because the stars on both teams are in peak form, and it's just going to be a great clash on a Thursday night. I know you got nothing better to do. You'll be watching it from buzzer to buzzer.
I certainly will be. I'll be tuned in, and it is going to be a great spectacle and two hot teams. I've been up on Southeast Melbourne over the season, but then disappointed at times. And the biggest time of the disappointment was when they lost to Melbourne United with 3 of their stars out. So I can't pick Southeast Melbourne just based on that one game and the way that Chris Goulding's playing, but I think it's going to be a tremendous matchup.
Elsewhere, the Jack Jumpers are hosting the Kings. The JJs, you feel like they're favourites coming into this, depending on which Sydney team turns up. Who have you got, Derek?
Magnay Hammer. I saw what you said last week. I'm not totally there with you, but his impact is highly significant. I just don't think Sydney have enough. They don't have enough defensively. We've outlined their woes. They're not getting it done, and playing down in Tasmania, a place that's always hard for them to perform. However, I just can't see Sydney winning this game.
Well, Magnay will be the best centre in the competition by the season's end. The only question mark for me is that Tassie have to play in Perth a day and a half earlier. So they've got to travel. That extra travel will add something. You can't write the Kings off. They've got the most talented team in the league. They've got the most depth. I think their athleticism, everything else. But the way they're playing, they're underachieving. And it would be easy to see Tassie just really be able to, structurally be able to dismantle them. But a few question marks as well. Intriguing game.
And Joe, speaking of travel, I was, feeling empathetic with our far north Queenslanders and really praying for their well-being as this cyclone approaches. And then I looked at my schedule, Joe. I'm doing the Cairns game, not you. I've got to travel up there.
Yeah, we're really feeling sorry for you, mate.
You'll be just fine. You could be on standby there in Brisbane and see what happens.
Drink cards all round. Derek Rucker's back.
Thanks, Steve. Catch you later.
Not a problem. See you soon.
Matty Logue at the desk for the Logue Down this week. Matty, we're talking coaches. Adelaide need a coach. The Hawks need a coach. Are we bordering on a bit of a coaching merry-go-round happening?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of calls going around the league, guys, that, can Chase Buford come back? Is he going to be interested? We can reveal for starters that Chase won't come back to the NBL. He wants to get to the NBA. I think he's been taking the patient road at this point, but he would see that as a potential step back. He's won the 2 championships, so you can cross Buford's name off the list. The other one that's interesting is Brian Gorge, and it always comes up because it's Gorge. And I think at some stage in the right capacity, Gorgon will be in the NBL again, but it's got to be the right capacity. But in terms of Adelaide or Illawarra, I think no chance. I'm told that post Paris Olympics he'll go to Asia again, and he's had a lot of experience in Asia. But it all ends into, I think, the biggest coaching position, guys, is Adelaide. And I heard you guys earlier talking about the situation there. It is messy. It's ugly. It really is on and off the court. And there's established names that have been around the NBL for a long time, coaches that are a bit hesitant. They're like, well, I've heard it described that it's a good situation to go to Adelaide. I don't.
Because of their current roster position.
Because of their current roster position. Yeah. And I don't know. I tend to disagree in a lot of ways, only because there's no guarantee that the current roster position will be there. So for example, like Kadee, who's being forced to sit, he might decide, I don't want to be patient here and stay. And then also, I think it's more as a collective Adelaide. That's the concern, is that there's coaches that are looking at it and going, oh, well, would you go there? Because
but you're
the front
talking about
office.
Ownership and
I'm talking about
the
front office. Yeah, I think they've been on different pages, and I think there's concern there from outside for a long time. Now, Trevor Gleeson's been mentioned, but again, as a good situation. But I think Trevor's made it pretty clear that he's won championships. He wants to go to something that's stable, and I think it's going to take time for Adelaide to be stable again.
As someone who's coached, would you take that job right now?
You'd have to have very, very firm talks to be able to understand where management's at and what they're trying to do, and that you're going to be able to run your race and recruiting and what they're trying to do, what the budgets are, all those things, because at the moment it's been a mess. It's people that have a choice wouldn't take that job right now, and that's Trevor Gleeson.
On a slightly more positive note, the Tassie Jack Jumpers are potentially looking to re-sign Scott Roth.
Yeah, that's a great story. Obviously, he's done such a terrific job down there, guys. I think they're a massive chance this year. I like when Shane talks about how they're systematic and they're so disciplined. It's you associate that with being boring.
I love this vision.
But they're not. But then look at him. Like, you know, I love the fact that he has a cheeky cigar before a game. That's his ritual, and he genuinely is a good fellow. Like, you talk to him off the court, and yeah. So my understanding is it's an extension for a multi-year at least, and I think that's great news for Tassie. What he's building down there and is terrific.
And so they should, mate. But when you talk about systems being boring, I don't see that at all. I
don't either. No,
you listen to Jack McVeigh, and he loves it, and their imports, they love it. He embraces them. But what he does is he's really firm with keeping people accountable. And when people are accountable, everyone knows exactly what to expect, how you fit in, where you're going to get yours, what your role is, everything else. And it becomes easier to be able to play when you've got somebody that has that vision and has an ability to be able to give you enough freedom, but also keep you accountable about how you're going to get wins.
Oh, and you can see it, the way they play, and you add that with the fans down there, and Joe goes down there all the time, commentary at the NBL, it's unbelievable.
No, he's great. So they've done a great job.
Yeah,
and they are a chance. They are a legitimate chance this year.
Speaking of legitimate chances, Melbourne United, Luke Travers has looked very good for them this season. The Cavs are in town in Melbourne this week. What do we read into that?
Yeah, well, Mick Randall's based down in Melbourne, and he reached out to me and said, you know, heading down there this week, and he said that, mate, the Cavs assistant GM's there, and he's in deep conversation with Travers. They're keen to. The plan was always to stash him here, see him develop, and get him back to the NBA. My question is, Shane and Joe, is like, how soon do we see that realistically? Because he's signed a 3-year deal with Melbourne United, so he'd be a very good NBL player. But people forget he's 21 too. I think he's been around for a while, so you feel like he's a lot older. But how close is the NBA really?
It depends on their situation and what they are looking for him to be able to come in and do. I think it was a great move for him leaving Perth. It was a line in the sand for me where he said, no, I'm not just happy to be content and to be able to play here. Because sometimes when he plays, he looks content. He doesn't look like he's really getting after it. So I think that's the next step for him to be able to do it. But he is young. He's got an NBA body. I think the sooner they take him into that NBA environment, the more he'll improve, because he'll improve his body and everything else as well. Definitely. So I wouldn't write him off from being in the NBA anytime soon. I'd like to see more, no doubt about it.
Of course.
But no doubt they're out here. I mean, they've got his rights. They should be out here. They should be monitoring him and waving that right in front of him to say, keep working, young fella, because there's a spot here when you're ready.
No doubt. Take that opportunity with both hands.
And just quickly, I was just going to say too, news at Adelaide too, Mitch McCarron obviously was front and centre last week. That spray, like, that was all time. Like, it happens a lot in sport, but that was like, and he's a leader there, and he's been quite professional with the way he's going about. Like, you know, he's playing less minutes, but he signed for the off-season in New Zealand with Taranaki, which is Chris Anstey-owned team in the New Zealand Basketball League. And my understanding is that McCarron will use that stint in the off-season as potential leverage to join another team, because it doesn't look like the situation in Adelaide is going to change. They've made that quite clear. Yep. So, yeah, I'm told watch this space on that situation in New Zealand. So
good on him.
Hope he gets another club.
All right, thanks, Matty.
All good.
We're pleased to say that Hawks interim coach Justin Tatum joins us now from Wollongong. Justin, so great to have you on the basketball show. You're just coming off the Hawks, arguably their best win in the last couple of seasons. How are the group feeling after that, and what were the factors that enabled you to go and get that against Perth?
It was a really good feeling to win that game. We've been playing pretty well up until then since I took over, and we wanted to get over, since we lost that game to Brisbane, we wanted to come and give the hometown a good showing, and it was better than what I expected. But the preparation of the guys to lead up to that, it was just the focus and the mentality that, you know, we have had multiple losing season last year, and we didn't start off that great this year. So we wanted to, and with me, I expressed to the guys, they got a clean sheet of paper to kind of prove who they are, you know, what they can do. And so I think that game showed us a big, you know, a big picture of what we can do down the road.
Justin, I want to wind back the clock to when you were assistant coach. You came in. Were you sitting there, were you thinking, if I was coach, I'd do things a little bit differently? Were you contributing? Were you holding your tongue? How did you sort of feel as an assistant?
I felt used. I mean, felt useful. I mean, my coaches, I expressed my opinions, what I felt that we could do better. But I mean, sometimes the coaches, head coach, if they have their agenda already set and what they go with for the field of the game, I'd do it. So, but I was expressing everything that I felt it can enhance and better the team, and coach, used what he wanted to and to put in there as my insight, which is totally fine. But I don't want to never sit there on the bench and say, I wish I could have done this or said this. I'm gonna actually do it because I'm all about trying to find a way to get the team to be better.
The team look very different to what they did even just a few weeks ago. There's a renewed energy or optimism about the group. What specifically have you changed, let's say in practice, since taking over to turn this around?
I like to have practice. When we come to work, we like to have fun. When you come to work, you want to make sure that when I go to work, I'm going to enjoy work. And that's kind of what I felt I made the environment in the last couple of weeks, not with games, but with just more competitive things where the guys had to be held accountable. And so they enjoy these things, the new drills and things that I brought to practice. And so I'm a player's coach. I played before. I played so long, and then I know how their mood swings, their body language, and things that I can pick out where it might be hurting or not helping the team, and I call them out on that. So I'm really straightforward with my guys, and they respect that, and so they want to be held accountable. And those are some of the things that I felt that I brought to this team in the last couple of weeks.
How has your relationship changed with the players? I mean, as an assistant coach, there's not as much accountability. You can be the fun guy, sometimes go out drinking and whatever. How have you adjusted that as a head coach, or has it stayed the same?
It sucks a little bit because I'm by myself on an island now. I can't. Normally, sometimes I go play golf with the guys or go dinner, but that still happens when we're on the road. But I was doing it more as an assistant. Now, since my plate is full as far as how I'm gonna prepare this team and in this really tough league, week in, week out, trying to prepare for the next group, it took a lot. It took a lot of that away. But the guys still text me and checking on me, make sure that I'm okay, and how's my day, even though I'm here by myself. So it's changed a lot as far as our appearance and things off the court, but they still check on me, make me feel like I'm still okay. I should be okay out there.
You said on the coverage before the Perth game that you want the job full time. Have you had those discussions with the club yet?
Oh no, not yet. I'm still in my mind. I'm in my proving myself stage, and so that I haven't put pressure on them, and I want to make sure my team understands that at the end of the day, we all have an agenda focus for ourselves. We got to be, selfish at sometimes, but right now it's all about us in the group and getting out of this hold and getting hopefully in the competitive, in the top 6. So once that does come about, I will address management then. But right now, I'm so focused on these guys and trying to get used to this league and win the next game. It's just, that's not the worry right now in my mind.
Yeah, as you've said, you want the job full time, and you've done a great job so far. But what about the bigger picture? If you become a head coach, is this a pathway to the NBA? We've seen it with players and coaches before. Is that part of the bigger picture for you?
Yeah, that was my goal coming out here, to build my professional resume up a little bit, to be able to maybe get on the bench at the NBA or become a head college coach. But since I like professional coaching so much, I don't think I want to go to college, because you got all those little, little knickknacks, NILs, all those things you got to do with college. These professional guys are really, really good at what they do. So, but my goal and my dream when I came down here as assistant, to build my resume up to maybe get on the NBA bench one day, and hopefully that, if I take on a head coaching job here and do well, that dream may come true.
Well, speaking of the NBA, I mean, I know you're busy at the moment and focused on the Hawks. How much time do you get to watch the league? And obviously, Jason over there as well. How much of that is a focus for you?
It's a major focus, but not as much as I used to. But my club set me up with the TV in our practice area, and so Jason comes on at probably the same time that we practice, and when we finish it on up. So I sit here in the pit for about an hour and a half, 2, and watch it on the screen. So I get a chance to watch majority of the games and still critique him as a dad. But that's the only team that I watch is the Celtics. I don't watch anybody else, so I can't really tell you who's doing well, who's doing bad. So he's my main priority. So because we still like to have those competitive talks and conversations here and here out.
Can you make the NBL playoffs from here? It's tough.
Yeah, the NBA playoffs are tough. I mean, but I think we're heading the right direction. We got out the bottom, and we jumped up a couple slots to the 8th spot, and we know it's the top 6. So we got a long season to go. We can still have a chance to make it up there. So that's the goal.
Southeast Melbourne this weekend. How do you see that matchup working? Will we see more of the likes of Davo Hickey, AJ Johnson, Lockie Olbrich?
That's a blessing for us. We have guys who those guys are really guard oriented. I mean, Bryce Cotton was a monster to slow down. I couldn't believe that we held him 1-9 on that until somebody told me at the end of the game. But this coming up week we have Big Sauce and Mitch Creek, so that's a totally different thing. That's an inside presence. So we'll probably see other guys that be able to help us out. But Davo and AJ will always be ready. Anybody on this team, they always be ready. But it depends on the matchup that we need to exploit when we have those against our opponents.
Well, Justin, really appreciate your time this morning. Great to get a bit of an insight into what's happening at the Hawks. We love the renewed energy and excitement around the club, and best of luck for this weekend and the rest of the season.
Thank you for having me. Hope to hear guys from you soon and in the same positive way. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well done.
All right, time to talk NBL Supercoach. Nathan Strempel is joining us. Nath, 4 teams have 2 games this week. Talk us through this. Who are you going for? We know that you're leading the Supercoach standings as far as the basketball show is concerned.
Oh, look, I'm going okay. I'm actually just looking forward to seeing how Shane and Derek go head-to-head this week after Shane's flying after a big win against you, Joe. But like you said, halfway point of the season, 4 teams on doubles, so this is where it gets a bit interesting in the fixture. Kansas' run of doubles is about to come to an end. So some of the selections are going to come down to the crunch. And as you mentioned, Melbourne, Southeast Melbourne, Cairns all on doubles as well as Tasmania. So interesting to work out which 2, or maybe if you've got a boost, which 3 players you want to bring in this week.
Who are you bringing in then?
Well, for me, I think there's a bit of strategy around it. I think it's very hard not to bring in Alan Williams. The big source is rolling, and it'd be a brave super coach and not to find the way to bring him in this week. He, I think, is the logical choice as captain. But then the second choice for me, I think a point of difference might be the way to go. A lot of people looking at Mitch Creek, back-to-back doubles for Southeast Melbourne, but I wouldn't mind just a sneaky point of difference. Maybe someone like a Luke Travers out of Melbourne, or one of the Tassie guys in Crawford, or Doyle if he's playing. But we're waiting on news there for Milton Doyle to see if he's made his way back from the States yet.
Mate, I've gone Magnay. I just think that his stocks are rising, and the longer he goes on, he's going to play more court time. He's been dominant.
This is what I'm talking about, a sneaky point of difference there. A Magnay who's got a low break even, his cost is going up. If you can get some of those guys in now, that is going to help in the back end of the season where your bank balance is a bit higher, you can afford to make changes. Because if you look forward in the fixture, there's a number of weeks coming up with only 2 teams on the double. There's that week where it's just Melbourne and Sydney. Further on, there's a week where it's just Adelaide and Tasmania. So you get a Magnay now cheap, and you can hold him till then. He could be a valuable piece.
Melbourne and Tassie. All right, we'll have to have a look at that. Nate, love your work as always. As we said, leading the basketball show leaderboard in terms of NBL Supercoach. Thanks so much.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
Before we finish up, I want to give a shout out to Dante Exum, new dad, and he just notched his 1500th NBA point. Great to see him out there and I guess back on track, you could say.
Well, only through injuries, wasn't it? He had so many injuries early days in the NBA. Still only pretty young, really, but having to go back through Europe, he's a much better player for it. He was great for the Boomers, the World Cup, and yeah, we're big fans. I love seeing him.
Yeah,
on fire.
Awesome to see him killing it for Dallas. Well, that is the basketball show. As always, thanks to Code Sports, Boost Mobile and the Throwback Store. Thank you guys for watching. We'll be back next week. It's our last one before Chrissy.
It is. Can't wait.
Yeah. See you then.
This is a co-production by News Corp Australia and Closer Sports.